Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. Time now for Campaign Chronicles, our daily look at the French presidential race. And today we're having a look at the most unexpected political story of this campaign, the continued rise of Jean-Luc Mélenchon. The far-left candidate has gone from a side story to the focus of everyone's attention. And over at the Socialist Party, the focus of a fair amount of anxiety as well. And for more on that, I'm joined now by our press reviewer, Elena Casas. Elena, Jean-Luc Mélenchon starting to worry the Socialists quite a bit now, isn't he?
Yes, he really is. Everyone's talking a lot about him all of a sudden this week. We've been talking a lot about him. This is the second time we've talked about him. He's on the front page of Libération today, and that's their headline. He's putting a lot of pressure on the mainstream left. Now, in their editorial, they say that partly because of the widespread European discontent with the economic crisis and anger about things like bankers' bonuses, he's woken up the sleeping radical that you find, they say, at the heart of every self-respecting lefty. But that's not good news for the mainstream Socialist Party. Essentially, there's two ways they can deal with this. On the one hand, they could say, great, he's bringing in loads of voters who might not otherwise go to the polls at all. Remember, we were saying the other day, he's won over a lot of quite disaffected young working-class voters, people living in the impoverished banlieue, the suburbs of Paris, people who otherwise probably wouldn't actually vote because they feel that all the parties don't really care about them. He's made them believe he does care about them, so he's mobilised a lot of people that probably wouldn't turn out otherwise. So on the one hand, the left can go, great, we've managed to get those people into a polling booth for the first round on April 22nd to vote for Mélenchon. Hopefully, 2 weeks later, second round, they'll vote for François Hollande. Fantastic. That's what one socialist former minister, Jean-Christophe Cambadélis, tells Libération. Unfortunately, there's also another way of looking at it. As another socialist former minister, Laurent Fabius, tells the paper, he thinks they should be directly attacking Mélenchon because he's attacking Hollande. He's saying he isn't going to tell his voters to vote Hollande in the second round, even if that's probably what most of them will do. He reckons that Hollande is still in an old-fashioned kind of rhetoric. He's not that much different from Nicolas Sarkozy, according to Mélenchon. He wants to go in a completely new radical direction. So for Laurent Fabius and another sort of strain of thought in the Socialist Party, this is extremely worrying, and they need to start crawling back these voters from Mélenchon.
OK, well, the far-left paper L'Humanité, on the other hand, I imagine is celebrating this success for Mélenchon.
They're cock-a-hoop, of course. I mean, they back him anyway. They're a communist paper. But they've got the people of the North accelerate the movement as a headline. 23,000 people, according to them, went to a major Mélenchon rally in Lille on Tuesday night. And what stood out, they said, about a lot of the people there is that they are people who haven't voted otherwise, or else they're people who voted for Marine Le Pen in the past. Factory workers, the unemployed, people on very low incomes who have previously turned to her as a radical option because they feel the mainstream parties have ignored them. Now they're turning to Mélenchon. The editorial in that paper is one of the most poetic I've seen for a long time. It says, we can finally believe in political ambition and ideals again. We had an intuition this could work. Now here is the proof. The insurrection, they say, has begun. So,
wow,
revolutionary talk
there,
in that paper.
Gosh, well, certainly giving hope to the communists then. But you mentioned there that he's also stealing votes from Marine Le Pen, amazingly enough, the far left and the far right. How has she reacted to that?
Well, it's not that shocking, really, because they've both painted themselves as outsider candidates to the establishment. They're both talking to people on low incomes who find it hard to get to the end of the month. Essentially, she's just telling them it's because of immigrants that they can't get a decent job, and he's saying it's because of bankers and their high bonuses and the global capitalist system and outsourcing and so on. So his narrative perhaps slightly more complex, but they're trying to solve the same problems, which a lot of the two main candidates, Sarkozy and Hollande, still don't really have the language that they need to talk to those working class voters. Now, Marine Le Pen has given an interview to Le Parisien today, actually to a panel of readers, in which she says that she's the only true, really anti-establishment candidate. Mélenchon, according to her, is just trying to play his cards right in order to become a socialist cabinet minister in the long run, something he's denied, by the way. He says he would never serve in a François Hollande cabinet. She also tells those readers that she's not an extreme right politician. Her party isn't on the extreme right. The anti-Semitism in France has died out, except among an Islamist minority, and that she still believes she can get through to the first round, although her poll ratings have been declining for at least a couple of months. So she isn't necessarily doing particularly well, but the readers do seem to be quite impressed by her. She's very good at PR, Marine Le Pen, and what she's doing there essentially is trying to soften the image of her party, trying to say that, its anti-Semitic past under her father has been left behind, and it does work. The readers who met her tell the paper's journalists afterwards that even those of them who were going to vote socialist found her friendly and sympathetic, and she seemed to be honest. So she's very good at that PR, Marine Le Pen. Over at Le Figaro, they're also looking looking at the effect of Mélenchon on Hollande's voters. Mélenchon toughens his line against Hollande is their front page, and they really, in some ways, are as pleased as L'Humanité, but for different reasons. They're quite happy on that right-wing paper to see the left start to tear itself apart. Their editorial says things are getting complicated on the left, and you can see they're almost rubbing their hands in excitement at the thought of Hollande losing a lot of his voters. But they do make a valid point, which is that, if he gets to the second round but with a very weak voter base, it doesn't make him look good, and it won't necessarily, Mélenchon's voters won't necessarily be like a reserve base of voters who will necessarily all back Hollande in the second round. So it's a difficult line for him to tread.
And Le Figaro thinking that could be good news then for President Sarkozy. Well, thank you very much indeed, Elena, for that whip through today's papers, most of them focusing on that far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And don't forget, there'll be more French politics tomorrow at the same time, at 9:50 Paris time, right here on Live from Paris. That's just about it from us for now. Thanks for joining us, but do stay tuned. There's more news headlines coming up right after the international weather next here on France 24.